So this is trigonometry basics. Okay. So I would say trigonometry basics. So when we try to understand trigonometry, we know obviously we talk about triangles. Now, firstly, we will divide this to understand the basic trigonometry into two branches. One is related to right angle triangles. One is right angle triangles. The other one is with non-right angle triangles. Okay. Now, inside right angle triangles, what are the concepts you know with right angle triangles? You know Sokotowa concept, right? Uh, right? Sokotowa concept you know. What else you know related to right angle triangle? Related to right angle triangle, you should know Pythagoras theorem. You know Pythagoras theorem, right? So those are the two things you know about right angle triangles. When it comes to non-right angle triangle, what do you know about this? There are whole different sets of rules we use for non-right angle triangles. The first one is called sine rule. It's a rule. We call it sine rule. The second one is called cosine rule. Second one is called cosine rule. So firstly, I'm going to do right angle triangle part and then non-right angle triangle part, and that's the basics of trigonometry. Next part is advanced version of trigonometry. We need that, right? Now, let's talk about right angle triangles, right? Related theory. Right angle triangle, related theory. Okay. Now, so you have this angle theta, and this is going to be R here. This is going to be Y. This side is Y. This side is X. Now we will define our sine cos tan using Sokotowa. Sine theta is equal to Y divided by R. Cos theta is equal to X divided by R. Tan theta is equal to Y divided by X. We know that, right? Now, from these fundamentals, I'm going to derive another um, relation, which is this. So we understand tan theta is Y divided by X. So this Y divided by X, I'm going to write in this way. Y divided by R divided by X divided by R. Now you can see fraction division is there. So RR cancels each other. So now you will understand Y divided by R, Y divided by R is sine theta. And you will see X divided by R is cos theta. So you can write this one as sine theta divided by cos theta. So this is very important So you can write tan theta in terms of sine and cos, which is sine theta divided by cosine theta. That's very important, right? Okay. So this is the first relation we can derive. Okay. Now the next one is, I will give you this as a question. Write x and y. Write x comma y in terms of r comma theta. In terms of r comma theta. So now look at the first relation. So from sine theta is equal to y divided by r. From sine theta is equal to y divided by r. I'm going to subject y, which is by cross multiplying this with r. So that's going to be r sine theta, r sine theta, right? So now you can see we wrote y in terms of r and theta, y in terms of r and theta, right? So similarly, you can take cos theta. Cos theta is equal to x divided by r. So you can subject x and then you can say r cosine theta. So r cosine theta. So you write that in terms of r and theta again. Right. Now we'll look into this diagram. So the summary. So when you have this angle alpha, for example, I will change the angle from theta to alpha. Then my hypotenuse is r, right? My hypotenuse is r. Now my opposite is y, which I can write in terms of r and theta, which is r sine theta. You understand that? You understand this? In presence of theta and r, you can write the y in terms of r and theta, so you don't have to worry about this y. So similarly, x you can write r cosine theta. Similarly, you can write this as r cosine theta. Good? So this is very important. So this is the beginning. Okay. So now let's go to the Pythagoras theorem now, right? How we can relate Pythagoras theorem with this. Pythagoras theorem. So let me draw this one in two different ways. So initially we had r here, y here, x here. So if you use Pythagoras theorem to this one, and this one was angle theta, right? So if you use Pythagoras theorem for this one, it would be r squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. That's Pythagoras theorem. Now, we have an extended version of this one. We just derived it. So we'll try to apply Pythagoras theorem to that extended version. So if this is r and this is theta, my opposite is going to be r sine theta. This is going to be r cosine theta. R sine theta, r cosine theta, right? So now before we had r x y, now y and x was replaced by r and theta. Now we'll use Pythagoras theorem to the second object. So if you use Pythagoras theorem to the second object, you get r squared, then r sine theta, the whole thing squared, plus r cosine theta, the whole thing squared. Right? Yeah. So now we'll do simplify this a little bit. So r squared sine squared theta. So that's the simplification of the first term plus r squared cos squared theta. That's the simplification of the second term is equal to r squared. Now in this case, what is theta, guys? In this case, the theta is the angle, right? That angle can be 30 degree, 40 degree, 50 degree, right? That's fine. Now, when you have this, what you do, you can factorize. You can take r squared out. When you take r squared out, you get something like this. You get something like this, right? Now, can r be 0? Can r be 0? No, r cannot be 0 because r is that hypotenuse. Hypotenuse cannot be 0, right? Can r be negative? Can r be negative? No, r cannot be negative. Why? Because r is a distance. How come distance is a negative? R is always positive, right? So this is always positive. Always positive. How do you write this one? R greater than 0. R always positive means R greater than 0. Now, I'm going to divide the right hand side by R squared and the left hand side by R squared. When I divide that, R squared gone. Here R squared gone. So we got a beautiful relation. After left hand side you get 1, right hand side you get sine squared theta plus cos squared theta. This is a beautiful relation, right? Right. So this is called the most basic identity in trigonometry, right? This is called the first identity in trigonometry. So now you will understand we just used the Pythagoras theorem, right? And you learned a whole new topic on this, right? Now, how this identity works? Example, let theta to be 10 degrees. So then sine squared 10 degrees plus cos squared 10 degrees is equal to 1. Then let theta to be 30 degree. Then sine squared 30 degree plus cos squared 30 degree is equal to 1. So likewise, you can go with any number. So for example, theta is 90 degree. So still sine squared 90 degree plus cos squared 90 degree is equal to 1. So that's why we say this is a identity. So whatever the angle you use, this identity holds true.